So we're still collecting people. If you called in with the last 3 digits, 943.
That's Salome. Nine 4 3 is Salome Barton. Maybe we can change her. I don't know.
Janelle, just let us know when you're ready to start. Janelle, you're muted.
You're not? Yes, I was talking to these guys. All right. So I know there was a little bit of confusion about where the location actually was for members. And that would have been here at DEM in the conference room, but it's fine. We had a public location that we're required to have where thankfully Shireen, my good friend, is handling that end of it. And this is the first time in a long time I've done a meeting, and the first time I've done it this way. So hopefully you guys can all bear with us a little bit as we kind of go through here. But Lorraine, do you have an agenda?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Gave it to me.
So if you want to, this bit here. This information, close the door. Okay, so Lorraine, if you want to go ahead and start with your call to order, we can go down.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 1 o'clock. And then I guess I will also take the roll.
I can do that for you if you want, Lorraine.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And I would say Stephen Akra.
Here.
Salome Barton. I think she's on the phone. Salome, can you unmute yourself? Okay, we'll move on. Faith Beekman.
Here.
Kathy Canfield.
Can you say that again?
Here.
And John Christopherson, sorry.
I'm here. Thank you.
Craig DiPolo.
Present.
Herman Fillmore.
Present.
Cheryl Gonzalez.
Here.
Claire Ketchum. Andrew Trelease.
I'm here.
Lorraine Walser.
Here.
And Erin Warnock. And I think she might
Here.
Oh, you are here. Great. And I'll go back. Salome, were you able to unmute yourself? I do see you on the phone. I'm not sure if you're hearing us or but you're muted. Okay, and then Claire Ketchum. I do not see, so, okay, well, we do have a quorum. So I think you can move on to number 2, Lorraine.
Okay, at this time, we'll be taking public comment from anyone. Anyone on the phone? Okay, hearing none. We'll move to the next item, number 3. Okay, Janelle?
And I just wanted to go through and have everybody introduce themselves, maybe, let everybody know your name, where you're, what agency you work for, what you do, and then whether or not you've had any prior experience with mitigation at all in your prior work or your current work. And so why don't we go along. Lorraine, why don't you introduce yourself first and I can just kind of call you guys out.
Okay, sure. My name's Lorraine Walser and I'm with the Governor's Office of Energy. I was previously with DEM and we're looking at possible mitigation projects concerning the energy sector, possibly climate change, drought, maybe some of the things that aren't included right now in the state hazard mitigation plan. We were wanting to maybe discuss having those things added. And I'm happy to be the chair of this group and thank you all for being here.
Ian, you want to go next? Steve Acra?
Sorry about that. Steve Acroft, I'm the administrator of the Nevada Housing Division. Have not been involved in mitigation previously, but we are the RSF recovery support function for the state plan for DEM. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Solome, are you able to hear us? To give an introduction? Sure, let's see what is she saying. Yeah. So Solome, I know you can hear us calling your name, but are you able to unmute? See, we're texting back and forth on here. A little awkward for our first meeting. I'll go on to Faith Beekman. Would you like to go?
Hi guys, I can go. My name is Faith. I'm with the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, State Public Health Preparedness Program. Normally we staff the ESF 8 desk, which is Public Health and Medical, and then also RSF 3. And I have very little to no experience with mitigation, just mostly the preparedness side.
Well, we'll look forward to getting everybody who's not in here up to date or up to speed, and then you'll be experienced in mitigation. How about Kathy Canfield?
Hi, I'm Kathy Canfield. I'm with Story County. I'm the planner for Story County. I have experience with putting together projects and reviewing projects, but not necessarily from just a mitigation headline of projects. So this will be interesting to learn what goes on with how you're viewing these types of things.
Thanks, Kathy. John Christopherson, would you go next?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. John Christofferson here, Deputy Administrator with Nevada Division of Forestry and newly assigned committee member here. Happy to be here this afternoon. Our agency has quite a bit of experience with mitigation work, both before, during, and afterwards related to wildland fire events. We're actively involved in mitigation activities pre-disaster or pre-hazard through our fuel reduction program. We've got a lot of opportunities to apply and have been successful with securing grant funding for a lot of these projects, and that's our normal source of revenue to get those done with. But we do have some additional general fund support for those kind of efforts. Then certainly after the fire, we also look to mitigate the hazards that can occur as a result of slicked off hillsides and that sort of thing with fire restoration and rehabilitation work, getting vegetation planted back on unstable and at-risk slopes. So we also have assisted during flood events with our conservation camp program, providing inmate crews for sandbagging efforts and those kind of things during flooding events as well. So anyway, our agency is well-rounded with a lot of exposure to and participation in mitigation efforts.
Thanks, John. And everybody's new to this committee since this is the first time we're meeting and first time it was put together. Craig DiPolo.
Hello, I'm Craig DiPolo. I've been with the Nevada Bureau of Mines and Geology for about 36 years now. Study earthquakes and earthquake faults in Nevada. And I was chairman of the Hazard Mitigation and Planning Committee and the Nevada Earthquake Safety Council I participated heavily in as well. So also was chair of the Western State Seismic Policy Council way back when. So mostly I promote earthquake mitigation and try to focus on mitigation messages and influencing the public.
Great, we need you. Herman Fillmore, would you go next?
Hello, my name is Herman Fillmore. I'm the Culture/Language Resources Director for the Washoe Tribe of Nevada in California. I spent the majority of the pandemic as the liaison officer for Emergency Operations Center, coordinating a variety of activities in our community, testing alongside the National Guard, as well as vaccinations this last April. I have worked pretty closely with our environmental department and our TIPO officer to make sure that we're protecting archaeological sites, as well as providing vegetation plans for revegetation in some of the burns that have happened in our allotment lands. I've also worked pretty closely with some of the climate adaptation planning that we've done in the past too, to both mitigate climate change in our communities, but also to be able to adapt to those as they occur. Yeah, and that's just a little bit about my background. Thank you guys for having me.
Great, thank you, welcome. Cheryl Gonzalez.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to this process. I'm with Western Nevada Development District. We're the only designated development district in the state of Nevada. We've been here for 38 years. And our primary mission is to create an environment within which economic development can occur. And again, we're designated by the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration. We just recently received a grant about, 7 months ago from the Economic Development Administration to complete an economic recovery and resiliency plan, specifically as it relates to the economic shocks incurred as a result of the pandemic. We just completed that plan, which included 14 teams and over 130 unique agencies that represent our region, which is primarily comprised of 8 counties and 6 cities. And interestingly enough, the plan has been completed with an economic recovery and resiliency plan effort that will be implemented over the next 3 to 5 years. These are actions and strategies to recover and create greater resiliency for economic recovery and resiliency for the future. And one of the projects that came out of that process was the establishment of an economic recovery and resiliency management team to work with emergency responders as it relates to the impacts that our communities sustain from some kind of event, whether it be flooding, fire, man-made, natural. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this team so that we can create all the protocols that would be necessary to respond to our communities as they grapple with their financial and economic issues sustained from an impact. So yeah, and we just got the plan approved by our board on Monday, and here we are, starting off with one of our first projects. So I'm very excited. Thank you so much for inviting us. And I've not been involved with hazard mitigation yet.
Well, we're pleased to have you, and we're looking forward to what you have to contribute with all the economic development in that. Claire Ketchum, I saw that you joined. Are you able to introduce yourself?
Sure. My apologies for the technical difficulties. I'm Claire Ketchum with the National Weather Service in Elko. Thank you very much for having me. I'm a forecaster here, and as far as experience in mitigation, I've helped various local emergency planning committees across northern and central Nevada with their hazard mitigation plans, having gone through THIRA and all of the questions and whatnot. Also with the Weather Service, we've helped provide support during instances of major flooding, winter storms, wildfire. So, and we start, we are, you know, at the beginning of the process with issuing products. We go through the weather event, and then at the end there, we're part of the post-mortem analysis, see what went right and what went wrong. So again, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. We're looking forward to working with everybody. Andrew Trelease.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Trelease. I'm with the Clark County Regional Flood Control District. I'm the Assistant General Manager. I was involved in the previous iterations of the Nevada Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee. And I guess one could argue that the Regional Flood Control District pretty much does 100% mitigation with our mission. We have about $100 million a year budget, which we spend mostly on the planning, design, construction, and maintenance of flood control facilities in Clark County. And a lot of that includes outreach and things like that to the public to help keep them away from dangerous flooding areas before the rainfall events happen. So we're doing our flood safety news conference with the media here on this Thursday. So we got a lot going on, and I'm happy to be here with the new committee and looking forward to all the great work that we will be doing in the future. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Andrew. Erin Warnock.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Warnock. I am the State Floodplain Manager and NFIP Coordinator over at Division of Water Resources. I came into this role about a year ago, so I haven't gotten to do too much in mitigation yet in the way of the state hazard mitigation plan update yet. But we do work pretty closely with Janelle. Our group has done a lot in mitigation partnership with NDEM and as it relates to flooding. So I'm looking forward to participating more in that aspect and learning more about this.
Okay, thanks. And Solomay, are you able to speak now?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Yay.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh my goodness. I think it was more operator error than anything, so I apologize. My name is Solomay Barton. I'm with the City of North Las Vegas Emergency Management Department, and my background in mitigation, I actually started when I came on board in emergency management in 2015, and I've worked alongside with guidance and assistance from Janelle has helped me a lot through it, and that is in helping our public works department and, you know, acquiring some funding when it came to some of the projects that we would like to do some mitigation on in the city of North Las Vegas. But I've also participated in the SIRA, our jurisdiction, our city has participated in the SIRA SPR project and program, and we look forward to having more support from this program and collaborating with everybody that's on board. Thank you for having me aboard.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you guys who were willing to give of your time to help grow the mitigation program for the state of Nevada. We're very, very pleased to recreate this working group and to move forward. There are a couple other people I'd like to introduce themselves. Suze Coyote, would you give us a little background?
Hi there. Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Suze Coyote. I work for the Division of Emergency Management. I'm the supervisor over recovery and mitigation for the division, and I'm super excited that we are getting mitigation working group up and running. It's been a long time in the making, and we're very excited to move forward as a group with greater capacity and a broader spectrum of mitigation opportunities. Thank you.
Thanks, Suze. Bunny, can you give us who you are? And she used to be on our old committee.
Yes. Hi, Janelle. Hi, everyone. My name is Bunny Bishop. I work for the Nevada Division of Water Resources. I'm the Chief of Water Planning and Drought Resiliency. And as Janelle mentioned, I was involved with the last hazard mitigation planning group, and I used to be the state floodplain manager. The flood program is also under the section under drought resiliency and water planning. So wanted to just keep an ear and eyes open for this group. And I'm really excited that this group has been stood up and put together, and looking forward to participating with an eye towards drought in the hazard mitigation plan this time, and flood. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know what, Melissa Whipple, I think I went right over you. Would you introduce yourself? And my apologies.
Oh, no worries. Hi, everyone. This is Melissa Whipple, and I'm from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. And I'm with Public Health Preparedness as well with Faith. Yeah, and I'm one of the plan writers for our team, and I have little to very zero experience with mitigation.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so sorry for that. And then,
oh, no worries.
Kelly, would you introduce yourself? We do have Kelly Anderson in here as well.
Yes, my name is Kelly Anderson. I am the Grants Recovery and Mitigation Manager for the state of Nevada under the Division of Emergency Management. And I just want to thank everyone for agreeing to participate in this working group, and to ensure that we work towards our enhanced status, our enhanced program, keeping it enhanced. We have many different deliverables that Janelle manages along with Suze, and in order to hit those benchmarks, we really need a group of people coming together, such as this one, to focus specifically on mitigation. There's many different areas of mitigation, obviously, because we know from your backgrounds that you just stated, and we know that you're extremely busy doing your normal jobs, and this is an added task which will take your time and effort. So we do appreciate you coming to the table and helping us make mitigation a priority in our state. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. So that's pretty much our team. I just want everybody to know that the categories that were required by FEMA as part of the enhanced program: local government emergency management, that's Solomay. Cheryl Gonzalez represents economic development. Kathy Canfield is land use development. Stephen Acroth is housing. Melissa Whipple, Health and Human Services. Lorraine Walser is infrastructure. Herman Fillmore is natural and cultural resources. Those 7 areas are the minimum that we can have as a enhanced state. So then we added on our subject matter experts in some of the higher hazard areas, like Craig DiPolo with earthquake, John Christofferson with wildfire, and Aaron Warnock with flood, Andrew Trelease with flood, and then Faith my apologies, Faith Beekman as pandemic, but really health and human services. That's a new area because, you know, this last year and a half, we found that really no state had pandemic or epidemic as a higher risk hazard. It was very low on everybody across the country. So that's an important aspect where we'll be, you know, trying to figure out what can we put in our plan to update that and include something that we really thought had little chance of happening. But then, of course, we have Claire Ketchum with weather. And so I'm so happy, and we as Division of Emergency Management are so happy to have each of you included in this working group. So we're looking to do great things for the mitigation in Nevada. I wanted to take time to go through the hazard mitigation working group orientation, I guess. Kind of a little bit of a thick document that I put together based on how we used to do training for new members of our old planning group. And so I will go ahead and share that. Do I just need to shrink them down?
Nope, go to the bottom here.
Down here?
Yep. It's right here. So Janelle, are we closing out agenda item number 3 and going to 4?
Yes.
So does Lorraine do that, or?
You mean closing out the?
Karen, how's that work?
Yeah, normally the chair should be like introducing the next item.
Right. Okay, then we'll go ahead, since we're finished with number 3, and we'll move on to number 4.
Oh, can you tell us what it? Just
overview of the mitigation program.
Thank you.
Bet.
So I'm going to go through this, and it's kind of thick, but I just want to give you guys a little bit, because most of you do not have a background with the mitigation program, but some of you do. So this will be a little review or update for those of you who already know it. But for those of us, those of you who are new, we'll go ahead and do this. So this just gives you a little bit of what we're going to talk about with the introduction to mitigation, the authority, our plans, and the grants, and then this committee. So we'll go ahead, and I don't know if anybody's had a chance to even take a look at this. But what I'd like to do is just say mitigation is any action taken to eliminate or reduce the long-term risk to human life and property from natural and technological hazards. It's one of the phases of emergency management, which can occur in any stage and is the only phase that breaks the cycle of damage. So the idea is to mitigate before something happens or after it happens, so that you can lessen the impact when something happens. So we'll just go through here, and I'll show you this diagram of, you know, pretty much the planning or preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. And the cycle can start with mitigation, and it can end with mitigation, or mitigation can be in the middle of all of it. And I'm not gonna go over every little thing in here, but I'll let you guys go back. But specific charges to the mitigation, or to this working group, implementing the state hazard mitigation plan by doing the following. We want to encourage the local, tribal, and regional multi-jurisdictional governmental agencies and the private sector as well to prepare their own hazard mitigation plans. And just as a little side note there, I was contacted by one of the casino groups down in the Las Vegas area that was looking to create their own hazard mitigation plan for their properties throughout the United States. So that was kind of exciting to hear that. We want to help people prepare proposals from state agencies and local, tribal, regional, everybody to submit applications for pre-disaster mitigation, which is the BRIC program now, as well as our other programs, grant programs that can help do these projects to mitigate in Nevada. This committee will review those applications for the BRIC projects and make recommendations for the funding priorities. So you'll review these applications, we'll review them as a committee, and then you guys will rank them and put them in order, and then that gets submitted to the chief of emergency management here. And he'll do the final decision. Assisting DEM, which I guess would be me and Sue's, in putting together, all of this stuff so that it can be submitted to FEMA. We want to promote activities that contribute being disaster resistant in our communities throughout the state. So that's something definitely this committee will do. Assessing the natural hazards in Nevada and using risk assessments in the development of our plans and in the evaluation of the applications that come in. And then, of course, the biggest thing will be reviewing and revising the state hazard mitigation plan, as this is required by federal law, and each state needs to have that. So as an enhanced state, we want to keep that, and that's every 5 years that each of the local and the statewide plan will be reviewed. Now, what do we get with an enhanced state? It's not really an enhanced plan, it's an enhanced program. So it's all about the mitigation program in the state. But the plan is called an enhanced plan. So what do we get for that? With a presidentially declared disaster, we would get 20% of the public assistance versus the 15% that standard states get. So that gives us an extra 5% funding for mitigation, which can be used to do all kinds of things. And I see I left out something when I was changing that. But here's what was in the 2018 hazard mitigation plan. There were 17 hazards listed as a threat to Nevada. And you can see on here that high risk was earthquake, wildfire, flood. And then you can go over to the low risk, which has epidemic. So that's something that we are really going to want to take a look at and reevaluate when we go through, given what's happened in the last year and a half. And of course, we have the medium risk. And typically, in our plan, we have put the high risk hazards with strategic projects that we could do for those, but not listed them out for the medium or low risk. So that's something we're going to want to look at, because if you know, a severe, well, we are in a severe drought right now, but if we needed to do some projects for that, currently we wouldn't be able to do those because we don't have any projects listed in our plan for that.
Can I just ask a question as we look at these risk categories just real quick?
Sure.
So we've also identified man-made events, such as a shooting that Las Vegas experienced where I think it was over 50 some odd people died. Is that something that's been discussed in the past when it's a man-made disaster?
You know, it really is, and there's nothing wrong with putting man-made hazards within our plan, but for the hazard mitigation planning, FEMA really looks at the natural hazards, and that's what they're going to review. We can put anything we want in our plan, but FEMA doesn't review those man-made hazards. So if we felt like, you know, and that shootings or, you know, riots or whatever else, you know, that might be man-made were a significant risk to Nevada, we would want to add that in. It just wouldn't be looked at the same way from FEMA. They would probably skip over that. So if you're familiar with the THIRA looks at all risks, man-made or natural. And for mitigation, we go by the HIRA, which is the natural hazards. So that would be the difference for that. And many local plans and the state plan in the past have included these man-made events as well. It's just that I think with this last go around in 2018, the committee chose to remove those. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I appreciate it. I would guess that it relates to funding and reimbursement.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions, just interrupt me. So breaking the cycle, mitigation is one of the emergency response phases that can occur in any phase, but it's the only one that breaks the cycle of disaster after disaster. So why do we do it? We can look at the amounts of damages versus funding, you know, and especially with much of the hurricanes where we've had high years, you know, multiple hurricanes throughout the South. And all the damage that has come. And currently, mitigation, for every dollar you spend with mitigation, you can save up to $7. And so those are the most recent studies that have shown investing in mitigation. And that's why the federal government has thrown a lot of money at the mitigation program. So here it talks about for every dollar, $4 is saved. This again is a little bit old. And the newest is up to $7 at this point. Disasters cost way too much money. And, you know, when we say, oh, the federal government can do it or the state can do it, but actually we're doing it. Every bit of money that the state and federal government gives us is really our tax dollars that are coming back to mitigate. So we want to try to prevent a lot of these things from happening and do our best. And mitigation really happens at the local level. The state can do some projects, but for the most part, it's each local jurisdiction doing things to prevent a disaster or the damages from that disaster in their own area. So it really starts there. And I thought this was interesting too, that 40% of small businesses never reopen following a flood or tornado, earthquake, or other disaster. And that's really sad. If we can, that hurts the economy. It hurts the individual people. If we can do something in our state to lessen those effects, it's a positive impact for everybody. And this is just the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Guide, or HMWG guidance for our grant program. This is back from February of 2015, so it's a little bit old, but FEMA is working on updating it. I think next year is going to be the time for public comment. And once that happens and closes, then they will finalize it and release it, probably not until 2023. But this it really is our guidance on how we do each of the grant programs. As you can tell, this lists HMGP, which is post-disaster, the pre-disaster mitigation, or PDM, and the flood mitigation assistance, but PDM no longer exists and its BRIC has replaced it. And we've added HMGP post-fire as another grant program. So all of this is updated, and then it just gives, here's your table of contents, telling you where to find all the different things about how we do mitigation grants. And all of this stuff still is in effect until they bring out the new guidance. The Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 is really what provided the opportunity for states, as well as the tribes and local governments, to take new and revitalized approaches to mitigation planning, because we know that we have to plan for these things to happen. And so Code of Regulations is 44 Code of Regulations. 201 is mitigation planning. 206 is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. And then, of course, the Stafford Act, which really is the basis of everything. We've got our Nevada Revised Statute 414 that governs emergency management here in the state. We have our FEMA guidance, and that here is a link to the enhanced state plan for Nevada, the current one for 2018. And then HMGP authorized by section 404. So sometimes you'll hear us say 404 mitigation or 406 mitigation. And 404 is related to mitigation, post-disaster mitigation that would go through the mitigation program. And then, of course, you see HMGP post-fire. 406 mitigation is part of the PA, or Public Assistance Program, after a disaster. And that's where mitigation can be added to a project in public assistance, where you don't want to just put everything back to where it was before a disaster hits. You want to make it better so that the effects are less if the same disaster happens again. And then you have your recurrent flood, or your severe repetitive flood. The BRIC program, there's a lot of information on, if you look at the FEMA, if you look at FEMA BRIC, you can look them up online and get a lot of information. This is a state mitigation plan review guide, and what it's used as a guide to update our plans. And so you can see that this is a little bit old as well, released in 2015, but it was effective 2016. So I would be looking for them to update this as well. And then this, of course, takes you through all of the information, and here's a standard plan. And because we're enhanced, we have to not only include all of these states, standard state requirements, but we need to add on the enhanced state plan requirements. And so those first 7 groups of people or groups of representation that I mentioned earlier are part of this enhanced state plan requirement. So we work on updating that plan and go through each part of it. And every year that plan has gotten better and better. But I will tell you, currently that plan is more than 1,200 pages. So it's 2 great big fat binders full of information, but it's not fluff. It's very well written and substantial information. And we've gotten very good feedback from FEMA for our plan. So one of the last things is the plan review tool summary, where this tool is the information that needs to be filled out by the state, telling FEMA where each of these requirements is within our plan. And then FEMA will go through once we submit it and go through and check that. And the enhanced part of our program has been getting more and more strict every year. So we just know that we have to go above and beyond, but we are a large state with not that many people. So what we do is going to be different than California does, or another state that has a lot of people, maybe a little state that has a lot of people, like in the East Coast. So we make the enhanced program to fit our situation in Nevada, which is different from every other state. It's very personalized, I guess I would say. Then there's a list of acronyms and abbreviations, so you can take a look at that and see, what maybe we're talking about when we say an FMAG. Government always likes to throw out all these acronyms, and you just nod your head acting like you know what they were talking about, and then later go look them up and try to figure out. So this tells you what we're talking about. This is more of the state, going into the state mitigation plan review guide. Going through here, talks about the framework and the guiding principles, and plans. We want our plan, our hazard mitigation plan, to relate down to other plans throughout our agency, much the same as somebody in a local jurisdiction would want to do. You want to feed other plans throughout your jurisdiction. And at the same time, we want to take information from the local level and other plans in our agency and have those feed back up to our plan as well. So it's that integrated planning where we share information amongst all the different types of plans. Here is the procedure that we would go through with communication, plan submittal, the plan adoption when once it's approved by FEMA, then we go to the governor and get an adoption document from him. That goes back up to FEMA, and then it's a completely approved plan. Planning responsibilities. Again, this is just going through that document. I think I might have included the entire document in this, just so that everybody gets to take a look at what's required. And here are the standard plan requirements. The planning process needs to be explained. The hazard identification and risk assessment, mitigation strategy, state mitigation capabilities, local coordination, and mitigation capabilities, the plan review, evaluation, and implementation, adoption and assurances, and repetitive loss strategy. These are all things that are required by the standard state plan. And then when you get into the enhanced one, you go further. Here are those group of stakeholders that need to be involved in this planning process at a minimum. So we add to that, like I said, with the added experts in the different hazards. Go through here and I'll let you guys go back and look at a lot of this stuff if you'd like to. It's something you'll probably want to get a little bit familiar with. You'll learn it more as we go along through that process. And we work with the Bureau of Mines and Geology at UNR to do, and they do a fantastic job with our plan. And so there'll be a lot of work involved in us. What we'll do with each hazard area is put those sections of the plan. In section 3 lists out all the different hazards and Scott has some narrative in there explaining, you know, how that hazard relates to Nevada. And so those things will go out to a expert in that area, and then those sections are going to come back and you guys are going to review those, and we'll see if there needs to be any further changes or whether what they've submitted is good enough to go forward, you know, covers everything that we need it to cover and is updated. Integrated planning, talking about involving all these different groups that would, you know, enhance that process of, you know, not just a few people doing a mitigation plan, but a lot of the different areas so you get all the different perspectives. Let's see here. So talking about submission, I think down here will be, let's see. The review tool. The review tool lists out the state point of contact, our address, all that kind of stuff. And then it goes through the FEMA people who is reviewing it. It's usually a group of people reviewing and not just one person. And then they'll tell us, so here's our different things. Did we meet the standard? You know, what is our repetitive loss strategy? Do we meet the enhanced plan requirements or not? And it goes through here, and as I said before, we give the location of all these different answers to the questions where we covered it. Where is it located in the plan? And then FEMA is going to say it's met or it's not met. And it's going to go through all of these different areas here, asking us, did we meet these requirements? And then they'll come back and say, you know, congratulations, we found that your plan met this. Or they may come back and say, you know what, we want you to edit this particular area. So when we submit, we want to submit with enough time for them to do these reviews and give us, any changes we need to, that they feel we need to make because we were weak in some area. When they ask for that, we want that to all be done before it would expire. So we never want our plans to expire, although sometimes the local plans will expire. And so the mitigation program consultation summary is where they give us specific feedback. So challenges to advancing the mitigation program in our state, or what opportunities do we have to improve? They also list our strengths. So there's always room for improvement. And here's the local plan review tool that goes through the local jurisdiction and they send it to the state. So I review those. And if I don't feel like they need any changes to their plan or edits, I'll send it to FEMA and they go through and look at it. And once they've decided either that they met or didn't meet and need to have some edits to it, most of the time the plans come back asking for some type of an edit, although we have had times when the plans have gone ahead and a local plan has gone ahead and there's been no edits required. And so that's really a success of the planner that's hired to do that plan update. And I would like to just say that that was our contractor that did one of the joint counties and was able to put that through, and they didn't ask for any changes at all. So this is pretty much the same as the state level, although in theirs they'll ask for the different jurisdictions that are in their multi-jurisdictional area for their plan. So like with Washoe County, they have several cities and then they have 2 tribes that participate within their plan. And they've gone that route for numerous years. Other locations, the tribes don't want to, and they do their own plans, and that's perfectly okay as well. And this is just the cover of the 2013 enhanced plan. So we've been enhanced for quite a while, and you can see how the risks were quite the same. High risk, the top 3 they always remain the same: earthquake, wildfire, and flood. This shows the goals and strategic actions. So a goal would be something like reduce the loss of life and injuries. And who is the lead agency? That would be the Division of Emergency Management and the committee, the mitigation committee. This lists changes to things that were made. So what would our strategic action be? These are your mitigation actions. So we might improve awareness of the locations and potential impacts and links among hazards, vulnerability, and measures to protect life, safety, and health. And it'll go through that and list some different things that we have. And so we'll be looking at those strategic actions as well, seeing whether we want to keep them, change them, get rid of them, add some other ones, that type of thing. And these all get noted through the update of the plan. And so we'll go through here. And if there's something that you really want to see, let me know. I'm just kind of flipping through it here because you all have a copy of this so you can go back and look. This is a list of all our different plans for the counties. And so I can see from here what they are, for each county, what type of plan it is, when the next update is due. And so you can see that this is a little bit old as well. Any kind of comments. This comment for Carson City said that in 2016 it was approved pending adoption. And they had a tabletop for their plan update on 4/7/14. Or there's a plan in process of being updated. In this case, the committee at the time, the planning committee, went to this county and had their quarterly meeting there and met with people from the county. So that's type of information. We go through looking at the tribes. And so some of these, you can see where some tribes don't have one. Actually, Yamba does have one. So this is, again, is old. And so you can see like by Yamba, they're a small in the middle of nowhere kind of tribe. And so if they can do one, and they kind of got some help from the National Weather Service out in Elko, I believe, went out and visited them and gave them some help on their plan. That was one of the ways that their agency worked with a community to help them in the development of their plan. Some tribes are in a situation where they really wouldn't necessarily need a plan because maybe there's not that many people there, or they're all spread out. So each tribe is in a different situation, and so they certainly have the opportunity to join with county plans, but they don't have to. They can go direct to FEMA and do their own standard plan. So that's the tribal plans. And then funding that's impacted. So individual assistance is not impacted by a hazard mitigation plan. Public assistance categories A and B, which is emergency measures and debris removal, not affected by the hazard mitigation plan. However, C through G does require an approved state or tribal plan in order to receive that type of funding. And so again, the other different types of funding available, the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, which is post-disaster. Pre-disaster is now BRIC. For wildfire, forestry puts in for an FMAG when critical infrastructure is threatened by a wildfire. So that's typically, not always, but typically the very beginning of a fire where that'll happen. But that triggers HMGP post-fire funding. And so that's a lot of funding that comes as an allocation to the state to do mitigation program or projects. So we really look at that. And then flood management assistance grants, which are related to the NFIP, people who have NFIP or the National Flood Insurance Program things. So again, I'm listing out the different things, and this again, 2019 was the last year for the pre-disaster mitigation program, and BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, took its place. And they really made it bigger. Last year was $500 million for BRIC projects, and this year will be $1 billion. And so last year, only $500 million available, and they got $3.6 billion in applications. So they clearly, there's a desire to do mitigation throughout the country. And this is also not totally updated, but it shows you the different categories of our different grants and kind of where they sit. And this goes out to our resilience committee as information. So this first one up here is an LPDM or legislative PDM from 2010. They no longer do the earmarks that they used to do, although I have heard that they're trying to put that back into place. So that would be where the senators or representatives from our state try to tuck in some projects into, bills that get passed. And that would be an earmark for a specific state. So you can kind of see through here what we had 2016 and the type of funding that has been available 2017, 18. We now have 2019 in there. These are disasters. HMWG 4202 was Moapa, and that I'd like to say is closed. Yay. That was a big undertaking. And then 4303 and 4307 for the disasters in 2017. So we got, numerous projects through that. We just are getting some of our big over $1 million projects for these two disasters funded. And then here was one of the first years of post-fire, and you can see this one here was MDF did the project for mobile weather stations that went to the National Weather Service to use at different fire sites so that they could do some gathering information to be able to give warnings and just to be able to figure out what could be done in those areas. So we were very happy to get that through. And these are some of our other sub-grants that we had. This kind of shows the NDEM and the whole process with this committee or working group is combining all of these different areas, which are all of you, to work with DEM to accomplish what we need to accomplish for mitigation. So each one of you is as important as the next person in your participation. Here is the charter. The charter really is about saying what we are going to do. So NRS 414 authorizes the chief of DEM to carry out the emergency management program for Nevada. And as that, he is able to establish this working group to be an advisory committee to him. So we're going to do a lot of work, but a lot of it is also going to be advisory to our chief on the subject of mitigation. The purpose and mission, the purpose of this is to advise the chief, as I said, on our HMA or hazard mitigation assistance grants. It includes planning, projects, and policies. All hazards, including natural and man-made, may be considered, and the work group should adhere to the state hazard mitigation plan prepared in accordance with the DMA of 2000. So again, the things that we would do are what I listed prior for these charges. And then we'll be reviewing that plan and updating it. Membership, this listed out the membership of this team. And so if the work group members serve a 3-year term with no limit to how long you can be on the committee, provided you're reappointed by the chief of NDEM. These different categories are the ones that our chief determined. Now these top 7 were the ones required by FEMA. Our chief did the next ones, and then of course any other people that he might find beneficial he can add to this working group. it's expected that everybody attends every meeting as you can. Now, we realize life happens. So it's not like, if you miss a meeting, you're going to be kicked off. But I think the chief is really hoping that everybody will work together and put effort towards this group. And the fact that we have both in person and virtual for our meetings allows, sometimes we're in a situation where you wouldn't be able to travel, but you could get on for that short time for that meeting. Let's see, we have a chair, and we can, I guess, put together also a vice chair. The chair is selected by the chief of DEM. The vice chair is selected by the members of this group. So that's something we'll do at our next meeting. We won't do that today. Again, there's no term limit to the number of terms that a member can be a chair or vice chair. As Craig would know, he was the long-time serving chair of the former NIMPIC. The meetings for this group are quarterly, or there may be a request for a special added meeting as necessary for the grant period time. Typically is when that happens. All of our meetings are open meeting law meetings, as in NRS. Voting is a simple majority. We don't do proxies, so you can't have somebody come in your place to vote. You can have somebody come in your place to gather information from the committee meeting and take that back to them, but they cannot count toward the quorum or vote. DEM will supply the administrative support. And then communications DEM will maintain a portion of the web page to present work group meeting materials to the public in accordance with the open meeting law provisions. And that's what we did by posting this document as well as our agenda on our website in our open meeting area. And then any other handouts or presentations or anything that we would want to do would also be posted in those areas. So that's the charter for us. Listing the different partners and the state programs that mitigation works with is all of these different partner agencies, the state programs, Living with Fire, Silver Jackets, Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District, Nevada Association of Counties and State Agencies, as well as the federal agencies and really the private industry. We want to work with them because we want to partner with them. And then finally, general public. There's some suggested courses or training that you could do, and one of those is a grant application workshop. And that really just teaches you through how to do a FEMA mitigation application. It goes through all of that. It's a very, very good, very thorough class. You can do some things online. You can do them on going to them in person. If there's ever a class that we want to put out there, mention it. This is an online course, the Benefit Cost Analysis Fundamentals. And the benefit cost analysis is a huge part of our applications for mitigation. Review and evaluation of applications. These are typically in-person classes. So the last time we did them was in 2017 during the disasters, and it's something that I'd like to see us put out there again for everybody. And that's both state level and local. Some reference information websites. So FEMA, our website for DEM, which will be changing a little bit because this Thursday we move under the Office of the Military. So I'm sure that at some point our website will be changing a little bit, but have, really the same type of information there. Looking at recovery and mitigation, wildfire, the HMA grants, things. And then a meeting schedule. Typically, we try to schedule out for the year so that everybody knows what's going on. It's easier if you already have it on your calendar, and then when things come up, you can kind of schedule around it because you already know something's there. And it's a little harder. I did not go out at all past this thing. Our next quarter would be in September, and then we'd have to figure out, a date and time and what we're going to cover for that. My guess is that we'll start going out, and what I'd like to do is the first area be somewhere probably local in the north, and we bring, we have 2 people in the south, we bring you guys up to the north to, you travel up here to go to whichever area we would pick. And the same would be for going to any of the other things. The idea is to go out to the people throughout the state to be a help to them. So we would want to go out, have our quarterly meeting, have those people give us a presentation that tells us this is an area of concern for this hazard, and how can we help them address this issue by giving suggestions on grants, giving suggestions on what type of project they might do. So those are some of the things that we would do. And so the travel would be accordingly. And then of course we'll have a Zoom meeting along with it. So if you can't go, but you could be on a meeting, that's all good. It also gives the public a place to come in and easily participate in a meeting. This gives a little summary of those different grant programs that you can go and just look. It's a couple paragraphs for each one giving an explanation. The governing authorities, HMA, and then here it gives what the cost share, the non-federal cost share is to these grants. So basically it's typically a 75-25. So FEMA reimburses a 75% of costs, and the local jurisdiction or the sub-applicant would have to come up with 25% cost share. For BRIC and the previous PDM, it could be up to 90% with a 10% if you have a small impoverished community. And currently the only small impoverished community that qualifies with FEMA is Caliente in Lincoln County. Flood mitigation for repetitive loss also has that option of up to 90-10. Or our severe repetitive loss that could be up to 100%. Here's some information on eligible applicants and some information on the National Flood Insurance Program. This lists out some of the different grant programs and then types of projects that might be done under those grant programs. So that's all good information, the application process. And then I accidentally put the charter in there again, just for good measure. And then a list of everybody. And if you have, if you would take a look at that, and if there's information missing, like a cell phone or an office number or something like that, an address that we might not have, if you wouldn't mind sending me that information, that would be really great, so that we can be sure to always be able to get in touch with you guys. If I put anything incorrect on here, you can also correct that. I won't be offended at all. So there's that. We have Mark Sugar and myself just as kind of advisory to this. The chair is Lorraine Walser, and then this committee will need to vote on vice chair at a later date so that we can have somebody additionally. But that's it for that agenda item. Do you want to, are there any questions on this at all for anything?
Janelle, hey, this is Lorraine. I had a question about open meeting law, and I don't know if maybe Karen can address this, but in the past, when I've been a part of work groups, if you send out an email, or if someone sends out an email to everyone, does that count as a meeting that would need to be noticed, have a public notice? Because I know there were some issues with people emailing each other within the group, and that would be maybe somehow in violation of open meeting law.
Right, so Karen's actually, she's stepped out. What I think our DAG, or Deputy Attorney General, will be giving a short overview of the open meeting law at maybe our next meeting. She was unable to be here for this meeting.
Okay.
So she'll give an overview on that, but that's right. So I do not send an email out to you guys listing everybody on it. And you'll want to be careful about reply all in any situation, because if you go, we need 7 people for a quorum. And so you're gonna want to make sure that you're not corresponding back with a group of 7 people or more, because then you're in violation. So we want to be careful definitely about those types of things.
Okay, thank you. And then I was looking as you were showing the charter. It says that the chair shall provide a report to the chief of DEM on or before June 30th. Does that apply for tomorrow, or because we just started today, would we just do it in December?
Right. Yeah, and I imagine it's only, well, every time it would be just those 6 months anyways. So it's going to say, what have we accomplished? What did we do? At this point we met and we had an overview of the mitigation program, but the next one will actually go to a jurisdiction and meet with them.
So would I prepare a report for Dave then?
No.
Today? Okay.
Yeah, that don't, this first one, Kelly, that would you agree with that? Yeah. Just, we really don't have anything to tell them yet. Introduce ourselves.
Okay, thanks. And then I had a question about, how does the state plan correlate with the THIRA? Is there a correlation between, or what relationship does that have?
Well, it definitely has a relationship, but there will always be a difference between the THIRA and the HIRA, which, and part of that reason is because we're looking at all hazards versus natural hazards. And then the second thing would be that it's different people doing the THIRA than are doing the HIRA.
Right.
So it's nothing's going to be exactly the same, but they match fairly well. There's usually you know, one of those that's in a different, you know, at a different level than one of the other ones. So you want to remember that the mitigation plan is the HIRA.
Okay. Thank you. And then just one more question about FMAG. When there's critical infrastructure that's threatened, is it applied for by forestry or can other agencies apply for that?
But John, would you weigh in on this? But I believe forestry applied or asked for that declaration.
That's correct.
Or you can.
That's correct.
So it would be forestry asking for that, and then they manage that and push it out to all the different agencies that are involved in that. That's still correct.
So are we talking about applying for that through a specific grant program?
Well, you guys asked for an FMAG declaration, correct?
Oh, right. Yeah. For FMAG declaration, when it's a wildfire issue, you know, it typically will be submitted through us and we forward it on to FEMA in San Francisco.
Okay, thanks. So if a fire came through and took out power poles, wooden power poles, and that created power outages associated with the fire, forestry would still be the agency to submit that. Is that correct?
So, I mean, if we would submit the FMAG if we felt that power poles were threatened by the fire. I mean, typically it's going to take more than power poles to generate a successful review and granting of the FMAG. But that is always one of the considerations or one of the resources or assets or values at risk that we include in our FMAG application.
And keep in mind who the FMAG is for. That's for the responders. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's for the local jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yeah, so, if you were going to put in an application to deal with those fire poles or the electric poles or whatever, that would be a mitigation type activity that would come through us at one of our mitigation program, grant programs, and not through an FMAG declaration, because that's really for fighting the fire.
Or just to clarify too, it depends on if it's a major declaration of disaster. So above and beyond the FMAG, we can, as a state, request a declaration, and it may fall under the different categories that would be under Susan's shop, and then again get additional mitigation funds. So that would be like a project worksheet, and it would take, Suze, I know you're on the line, but approximately $4 to $6 million in damages of critical infrastructure, public infrastructure, to prompt that declaration.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and then I guess that could be, you know, an instance where you have a presidential declaration for a huge fire, but you also have an FMAG declaration. Two different things. So
Waterfall, for example, the waterfall fire had that. So we had a federal emergency declaration, and then I think it actually turned into a major declaration, then we had an FMAG as well.
Okay.
Thanks. That was all that I had. Are there any other questions from anyone for Janelle?
Yeah, this is
Just
Andrew.
as a follow-up on the, I'm sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask a question about the BRIC program, Janelle. In our enhanced plan, you know, you said the PDM went away, and then the old PDM grants, Nevada got a credits and extra points for submitting projects under the PDM, but that's, from what I understand, that wasn't the case for the BRIC. And so what is the advantage of the enhanced plan now beyond just the extra funds potentially after a disaster? Is there any mitigation type advantages to the enhanced plan?
You know, Andrew, you had asked that question, didn't you? I think that's a great question because it's a little frustrating how things have changed with the BRIC program, and the fact that for one thing, they don't limit how many applications anybody can submit. Well, Nevada will never be a state that has 200 applications. We just won't. We don't have the people to do that. We don't have the resources. And so that type of thing is frustrating for the more rural states compared to the populated states. California, for example, had a lot of, they put in for a lot of BRIC, but they also have all this money from 24 FMAGs last year and all their other disasters from, just every year they're hit over and over and over again. So they have tons of money coming in. But it's a little bit frustrating because currently the points that you get are what you're going to get with your application. It doesn't seem that there are extra points given for, how you manage your grants and what you apply for. And there's no, it used to be in previous years that if you had disasters in your state that lowered your, ranking, I guess, in the scheme of things on how money was divided out amongst all the different programs. So for instance, with BRIC this last year, 500 million, but they got 3.6 billion in applications. So what FEMA did was after they had scored everything, they took the top $1 billion in project applications and they did a technical review, and then they had to kind of walk that back to 500 million. So everybody outside that top 1 billion isn't going to have any feedback on their applications. So you're not going to know what did I do wrong, what didn't qualify, what could be done better. So that's a disadvantage. So I think and that's across the country. Everybody's kind of in that same boat. So we're guaranteed our set aside projects as long as they qualify, which you would hope they would if you're submitting them. But projects that are outside of that set aside are 100% competitive nationally. So this past year, I participated in the qualitative national review panel, which was a great experience for me as a learning experience. And yesterday, I gave a little bit of a feedback to our stakeholders on, what did I learn from that? Now, I will say that I think compared to the numerous applications I reviewed, that ours were done very well, but there really is no way to know were other people a little bit better.
So Janelle, I want to add something real quick. So one of the things I wanted to kind of add, so what is the, kind of circling back to the question, what are some of the pluses of having an enhanced program? I think that obviously the 5% in the disaster, the additional 5% that we get going, but also having an enhanced program actually brings everyone kind of in full circle. We ensure that we have mitigation plans across the state, every county, and hopefully most of the tribes. And we have groups such as this to discuss what our pitfalls are. We have the actual plan that not just, it really does force us to coordinate and collaborate better, and that we're more, I think we're more prepared in the end for a disaster, therefore putting money in before a disaster happens and then mitigating before and then mitigating after. So, I mean, that's how I see what the plus ups are of having an enhanced program, and also looking at probably everyone gets to participate in this, but FEMA comes out, looks at our plan, shows us what our deficiencies are, tells us that they're going to highlight one of the years out of the 5 years, probably it's the year before, I think they said. And then that way we can concentrate on ensuring that we meet those benchmarks, and also being emergency management accredited also kind of folds into hazard mitigation planning, training, exercising, as well as, you know, plugging those gaps with money and projects, and then doing outreach to our local jurisdictions, state agencies, and tribal nations. Because, I mean, I think the fact of the matter is that we don't have, we're not seeing the submissions of projects like we should. We want more projects to pick from. And also we want to ensure that we don't leave any money on the table, meaning after the money is allocated, that those program managers in this group has their eyes on if a subrecipient ends up pulling out of a project and de-obligating the money, we actually, the state of Nevada essentially loses those funds. We can't reprogram them. So all those things, I think, kind of factor into the advantages of an enhanced program. And that's just from my view. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that before I kind of lost my thoughts on that, because I think it's really important what the contributions are for each member of the group, and also fully documenting what we're doing in the state, so that we can show what the group is doing and how the planning efforts are making us have a really stable and productive program.
And I would add just to that I do send out a monthly survey for mitigation actions. So if you know of something, or if you've done, so Andrew, your agency does so much for mitigation, you know, it's really kind of the, you know, top of the spectrum on advocating and demonstrating mitigation for Southern Nevada. And being able to document, we're trying to be able to document as we go instead of trying to remember things at the end, which is kind of what we've done in the past. But if you guys know of things that were done, or, you know, maybe you didn't do it yourself, but you participated, or you, you know, gave, it could be outreach, it could be doing a project, it could be somebody else who did a project who really isn't connected with us, but they did mitigation for something. Just let us know, because we can sort out, you know, anything that's repetitive or whatever. But, you know, our goal is to really bring mitigation to the forefront, and how that can help people save money in the long run, and protect lives and their properties, and all of those things throughout our state. Even though most of it is rural, we still want them to realize what they can do as well. But yeah, I have to agree with everything Kelly said, you know, on advantages of this. But I can, you know, get maybe a little more succinct answer from, you know, FEMA on that, on how things have changed with the grant program, because it was a big, you know, influence on grants or grant opportunities in the past.
Great, thank you. Hopefully I'm hoping that they add that to the PRIC in the future, if the, if the part enhanced plans do get some extra credit, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Janelle. Can you check to see if Salome is muted from your end? She said that no one can hear her. So she wanted to check and see because she is still in the meeting.
Yeah, we haven't done anything. What is her?
Okay, she just said she's unmuted now.
Okay.
So thank you.
Do you have
Whoever did.
Salome?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Did you have a question or a statement or whatever?
Oh, no, I was just having issues earlier, and I think we have those corrected. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any comments or questions? I think it's going to be a great learning experience for all of us as we go forward and meet.
Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll go ahead and move on to item 5. We're going to discuss future meetings.
Okay, so I think I discussed this a little bit earlier with the fact that, we're gonna figure out with our September meeting, or September, October, we'll see how busy everybody is. But figure out a place to go and then ask, I think up here, just to start out, and then ask the 2 people from the south to travel up so we can be in person as a group. I don't know if anybody has an aversion still to meeting in person, but we can do that. Anybody who would be unavailable to actually be in person but could participate virtually would be welcome to do that, through our Zoom meeting. But I think it is going to make a difference to be able to meet in person and get to know each other and contribute more directly to whichever jurisdiction we choose to go to. So that's all I would say to that. And then I just want to let you know, Lorraine, because we're also on a YouTube, they're a little bit behind what we are. So when doing public comment, we need to wait,
Okay.
Give them a minute or two to if there is anybody. I don't know if we have anybody on there, but if there's any public comment, we do need to give them a little bit of time because there's a time delay.
Sure.
So if nobody else has anything on the future meetings that they want to indicate, you can take back over. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, so future meetings, we'll go ahead and move on unless anyone has anything else to add. Okay, so we will then move on to the public comment session again. If anyone has any comments, questions? Anyone on the phone have anything they'd like to, any comments? Okay, hearing none. I don't know, how do we know if someone on YouTube? Would we get, okay, we get,
No,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, hearing none, we can go ahead and move on to item 7, which is the adjournment. And I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 2:45. And thank everybody for participating.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Great meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Go on, gang.
Maliki Gabagi.
All right.